started then, Jessica. And thanks for setting this up, Jessica, as always. And Danelle, Nancy, and Sir Luck. I'm gonna call you Sir Luck, Kenny. Your name doesn't exist. It's Sir Luck today. So thanks for joining today's webinar. And I've been working with Jessica and others there at Fillers NEFAC, and they've been gracious enough to set up these webinars and trainings for schools and districts in the state of Florida that they all work with. And Pear Deck is one of the tools that they have chosen to let you all know about. And we're obviously happy to do these trainings to let you know a little bit more. So with that, I'm going to just go ahead and get started and present my screen. And I've got us on the calendar for an hour. If you all need more time than that, let me know. But an hour is usually all we need to go through everything and to have enough time for questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you're going to see the Google Meet here shortly. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get started. So for those of you who are not familiar with Pear Deck, thanks for joining and carving out some time from your day today to learn a little bit more. If you already know a little bit about Pear Deck and you're here to learn more, hopefully you'll get we'll bolster your knowledge of Pear Deck today, and you'll be able to take a few new things away from our time together. But if you are new to Pear Deck and you've never heard of us before, so we are a student engagement and formative assessment tool that teachers are using to make any of their lessons in Google Slides or in PowerPoint. So I typically use Google Slides. So you're going to be seeing what I do within Google Slides with our add-on to make this lesson interactive. And that way I can engage all of my students and hear from all of them within their devices. But you can do all of this within PowerPoint online as well. I know Florida is pretty heavy in the Microsoft world, so there might be a good chance that you all are PowerPoint aficionados as opposed to Google Slides. But because I prefer Google Slides, that's what you'll see, but it's not going to mess with your experience today at all if you do prefer PowerPoints. But what we're going to do is I am going to have you all experience Pear Deck as the student. So I'm going to put you in the seat of the student for the first 30 minutes and have you join my Pear Deck lesson and show you some of the things that you can do within a Pear Deck to make it engaging, while also being able to see your students learning. So we make that learning very visible through our platform. So as the teacher, as you're going through Pear Deck and you're going through these lessons, as you have your students log in, you can actually understand everyone's responses coming in real time. So there's real-time data that gets submitted to you as your students work on a Pear Deck to help you understand how everyone's progressing as well. Pear Deck can be used both synchronously and asynchronously. And in today's changing landscape, in terms of whether we're going to be virtual or we're going to have a hybrid mix of being both, or maybe just going fully back in person, which I'd be shocked if that was the case. But regardless of your situation, Pear Deck can be used both synchronously, which is what we're doing right now. So a live teacher-led instruction, whether it's in class or over a Google Meet like this, or Pear Deck can actually be delivered asynchronously, where everything that you're going to see in terms of our lesson today can actually be done the same way by sending your students a link to the Pear Deck and having them go through it on their own time. So you can do it in what we call student pace mode, where you can create lessons, send it over to them, share a link, and they'll be able to complete it asynchronously. There's a couple different views within Pear Deck if you're new to it. So I want to make sure that I point those out to you. It's just a one slide thing, but I wanted to point that out because it's important to know that within Pear Deck, there's a couple views as both the student and as the teacher that you'll have to manage in the virtual learning space. And I'll make sure that that all makes sense. And you're actually going to see what that means here shortly after you join my session. So the first two steps, that will be our first 30 minutes together. And then the last step, which is the third step, what we're going to do today is we're going to build your first lesson, if you've never done it before, through Pear Deck, and then also open it up for some Q&A that I can answer any questions. If you do have any questions as we go through the slides, feel free to type those in. Jessica will keep tabs on those in the chat box, and then I'll make sure that I go back to those after we go through these first set of slides. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So as you can see, we're in Google Slides. These are all my slides that you see that I've already created. There are interactive Pear Deck components within some of the slides, which you'll see here shortly. But to access our add-on, in the add-ons menu, you'll have to open it up. And if you don't have it downloaded, we'll go ahead and walk you through that. But since I have it downloaded, you can see that there is an add-on option, Pear Deck, and then open the Pear Deck add-on. And then you'll see here on my right-hand side now that is our add-on within Google Slides. And we'll come back to this, so this will all make more sense when we go through it step by step. But for what we're going to do is I'm going to now launch the Pear Deck session and have you join it as the student. So I'll be the teacher for the next 25 minutes or so, and then you're going to join it as the student. So to do that, you just click that Start Lesson button. And then right off the bat, you'll be presented the option to do it whether it's student pace asynchronous or instructor pace synchronous. Because we all are sharing screens and I have you live, we're going to go ahead and do this. We're going to do it instructor pace. So I'm going to start a new session. So every time you start a new session, it'll give you a brand new link or a brand new join code for your students to join the lesson with. So what I need for you to do now is join the session as the student. And to do that, there's a couple different ways. The first way is, actually, you're going to have to do this on every way. So go ahead and open up a new tab and just do a quick side by side. So open up a new window and then put it side by side and make sure that you don't close out my window, but you open up a new window and then you go to joinpd.com, like the instructions say, where it says joinpd.com. And then you're going to type in the FLUDP code. So I joined in, so it'll show you that one student's joined. You can also create a link. So here it says give students a link. And then I'm actually going to pop that in the chat. So that way, if you want to copy and paste that into the new link or into the new window, you can do that as well. So if I lost you there, I need for, nope, looks like I've got 4 total. So I think we're good. Let me check my roster really quick. So I got Danielle, Jessica, Nancy. It looks like we're waiting for Kenny / Sir Luck. So Kenny, if I went too fast on that, you'll have to join the link as the student. So in the second window, this is going to be your student view, which is what your students will do when they join your Pear Deck presentation. So in that window, you'll go to joinpd.com and then type in the FLUDP code to get logged in. And if you are having any issues logging in, just feel free to unmute yourself and let me know so I can make sure that you get logged in, okay?
It's just waiting.
Cool. So you can do it a couple ways. As I mentioned, you can have them go to joinpd.com. You can copy the link and send it. If your district or your classroom has Google Classroom, you can invite your class through Google Classroom as well. So that way, what that will look like is it'll upload your student rosters, and then whenever you launch a Pear Deck session, your students will be notified through Google Classroom, and they'll just have to click that link to join the session. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started while Kenny gets logged in.
I'll just watch through Nancy's as I'm going along. It's taking forever to go through.
Gotcha. Great. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close out my window. Don't close yours out because you have to have those 2 views as the students. So now I'm going to go ahead and start presenting. So now I've got you logged into my session. And right off the bat, my first question to you is, what do you wonder about Pear Deck? So not only is that the question that I want you to respond to, but on your student view, you're going to now have a text box. So this is a short text response question that you can incorporate into any slide where you prompt them with a question and they answer it by typing it in. So a pretty broad, pretty general question here. what do you wonder about Pear Deck? So go ahead and type that in. And as you work on your Pear Deck responses, as the teacher, you have a couple different classroom management options down here. So you can see the show response button, which when you click that, it'll do exactly what it says. It'll show the responses of all of your students, and it'll show it to the rest of your class. What's important on this, though, is that you'll notice that you can find your response because you know which response is yours, but you don't know what Nancy is saying. If you're Danelle, you don't know what Nancy is saying or Kenny is saying. I know we're a small group today, so you can maybe make an estimated guess. But if you're in a larger group of 15 to 30 kids, if you're going to be doing this showing of responses, all of these are anonymous. We do that purposely, so that way your students aren't afraid of participating in the Pear Deck lesson itself, knowing that the teacher at any time could potentially show the responses. So we keep that anonymity there purposely because we want to make sure that we foster a comfortable and open learning environment where kids aren't afraid to fail. So I'll go through these assessment tools, how to use. Is it hard to use? What if I'm not good at using technology? Great question. And I'm sure you hear this all the time, but Pear Deck is a very simple tool to learn. And when I walk you through it, we'll make sure that I own up to those words. Because when you see how easily it integrates with Google Slides or in PowerPoint, anybody can really use it as long as they have that base level understanding of Google Slides or PowerPoint. I wonder if Putnam Schools has bought Pear Deck for teachers to use in Putnam County. You know what? We actually have partnered with Putnam County before, and I think that you all renewed this year, but I'm not quite sure. So I don't know if that's coming from Danelle or Nancy or Kenny, but I can definitely look into that. But Putnam County has definitely at one point. All right, Nancy, I'll definitely check for you because if the county has purchased, then you will obviously have access to it as well. How am I going to use it with my students? So they stopped. Okay. For people not using it. That makes sense. And as you can see, as Nancy is working on the response, this is how real-time Pear Deck is. So as your students are working on those responses, that's how real-time it is, and that's how your responses will be sent to you. So there's no submit button that you'll have to do as a student. Everything comes to you in real time as your students are working on those responses. All right, thanks for showing that. There's a couple different layouts too that you can use if you're showing responses. Where that was a list layout, this is a grid layout. So this is more of a less like zoomed in view. It's more of a bird's eye view, which I actually prefer. So that first question type was a short text question where you're typing in your response. This next question type is a multiple choice or a poll, a clicker type of a question. So you're probably already doing this today quite a bit. But within Pear Deck, you can incorporate this type of question type into your lessons simply and quickly. So what remote learning environment, what best describes your current remote learning environment? The options I presented to you was synchronous, asynchronous, or both. So regardless of the situation in terms of you are wanting to incorporate more synchronous lessons or more asynchronous lessons, Pear Deck can be used in both. Right now we're doing the teacher-led synchronous way, but I will turn it on in student pace mode to show you the asynchronous option so you can get a feel of what that would look like from the students and if you wanted to send asynchronous lessons to your students. Great. All right, so the next question type is a drawing question type. Drawing question types tend to be one of our most popular, if not the most popular, because you can get very creative with it as both the teacher and the student. But when it comes to a drawing question type, you can make any slide into kind of like your digital whiteboard or your digital canvas. My question to you all is, what devices do your learners have access to? And I uploaded these 4 images of a mobile phone, a laptop, a tablet, and a question mark. So go ahead and circle what devices your learners have access to. So simply all you need to do is upload any image. So if you're like a math teacher and you wanted your students to work on an equation, you can upload an image of that, or you can just create it your own and then your student can draw over that. Geography teachers love using different maps. Foreign language teachers love to use different images to have them circle based on some sort of a word they verbalize. So obviously the options are really unlimited when it comes to being able to utilize this question type as well as any question type with Pear Deck, because it really is whatever you're currently doing and how you build slides. You can do whatever you're doing today, but then overlaying this interactive component with question types like this drawing question type. So I'm going to go ahead and show responses, and I'm going to do the grid layout here. So it looks like most all of us, if every one of us, it looks like maybe we might have one question mark over here. When it comes to Pear Deck and how Pear Deck works, when it comes to what type of different devices you can access Pear Deck with. So Pear Deck works on any device. So all you need to do, or all you need to have as a student, is internet access, a device, and either a Google or Microsoft account. So the same way that you logged into my Pear Deck lesson, that's what your students will have to do. So as long as they have some sort of device as well as internet access, they'll be able to use Pear Deck. And I know that especially in today's landscape, that might be a tall ask, especially if you are staying remote. But as long as your students are supported with a device as well as internet access, they'll be able to join a Pear Deck lesson and do all the things that we're doing together. One of the cool views within a drawing question type is you can overlay the responses. So this is everyone's response onto one canvas. So when I'm looking at this, it looks like for the most part, we have learners who have access to something, which is great in terms of a device. All right, so the next question type and the last question type is a draggable. So you'll see a red draggable dot in the top right-hand corner. So what I want you to do on this question is go ahead and move that dot to how you would respond to the statement of the question, every student deserves a voice, agree or disagree. And I think it's safe to say that we can all agree that every student deserves a voice. But let me follow that up and ask you, every student is heard. I'll give you 30 seconds to answer this one, even though it probably won't take you 30 seconds. But I wanted to prompt open that timer so you can see that. So what I did there is down here, there is a countdown/lock function. And if you want a timer associated with any question, you can hold down this counting down button, and then it'll give you the option of 30 seconds, 1 minute, and 3 minutes. And then once it hits 0, what that will do is it'll automatically lock you out of your screens. So it's a great classroom management tool that allows you as a teacher to have your students stop working on what they're doing within a Pear Deck question, because like you can see, it's actually kind of fun to interact with some of these questions. So as a teacher, you can lock those students out so that if you are going to be showing responses, that one, they can't change those responses, but two, it gets the attention back up to you because they stopped working on it altogether. So here we're kind of a little wide all across the board, which is typically what I see. I like asking this question because it's a good gut check question for me to ask myself, but to also assess your current situation to see what you're doing to help your students be heard. Because I think in every classroom, that's something that as educators we strive to do.
I take back my disagree. I read the question wrong. I agree.
Oh, that's fine. And you can disagree to that. And we get a lot of disagree to this statement that every student is heard because they feel like that that's a pretty bold statement to make, to say every single student you feel is heard. And obviously, you can talk about your specific classroom, but when we're talking about the large scope of students as a whole, I'd be shocked to see that, people weren't disagreeing with this question. But thanks for sharing that, Nancy. There's no right or wrong answers to any of these. So, when it comes to Pear Deck and why we're here today and what we do and the why behind what we do. So actually, Pear Deck was founded by former educators, and we wanted to give every student a voice and every teacher deeper insight into their students' learning. Now that technology is becoming more and more ubiquitous, it's actually becoming more and more of a commonplace for students to have technology in their hands. When we were in the classroom, we were struggling with that whole movement and saying, having a Chromebook is great, but what do we do after a student has a Chromebook? So we wanted to help supplement that transition, but to also, when it comes to instruction and curriculum and engagement, that we created something to help teachers and students with that. Actually, funny story behind Pear Deck in the name, if you're wondering where they came from. So we wanted to be able to pair student devices to teachers' instruction decks, slide decks, hence the name Pear Deck. And we changed it over to the fruit version of Pear because it's easier to make I guess, a cute little logo out of it. So we wanted to make sure that we helped and bridge the gap of technology and instruction and blended those two and married those two together, where every student is being heard, but teachers are also being able to see how those students are being heard and make that visible and make that learning visible. And to do that, we have the views that I wanted to make you all understand and make sure that you all understood after our time together. Because when it comes to doing a Pear Deck and delivering a Pear Deck, there's a couple things that you'll have to know how to manage, or at least at the very least conveyed to your students. So when it comes to joining a Pear Deck, you all are actually experts at this because you literally did it to join my Pear Deck session. But as a teacher, what you tell your students is when you launch a Pear Deck, this join code gets presented, or you can send the link to your students. But what you'll have to tell them is that in the virtual learning space, if you're going to be doing the synchronous teacher-led instruction, which is what we're doing right now, your students will have to have two windows open. So the first window would be that student view where you would go to joinpd.com, type in that FLUDP, join your session. Sorry, my mouse is being weird on me. But the second view is the presentation view, which is your view as the teacher. So if I lost you there, the second view is the presentation view for your students. But the presentation view is literally what you would have at the front of your class, like on the overhead projector. But because if you are in the remote setting, they'll have to have that second window and have it side by side. If you were in the classroom, students will only have to have the one window open because everything that you'll be projecting would be on the overhead projector, and that's how they would see that second window view. But if you're going to be wanting to do teacher-led live instruction like we're doing right now, your students will have to have two windows. If you're going to be doing the student-led asynchronous version of Pear Deck, your students will have to have just the one window, which is the student view. So they won't even have to have the presentation view. The two window setup is only for what we're doing right now. And this is the only time that you'll have to say you have to have the two windows. The teacher view, so on your end as the teacher or my end right now, you have the window, which is the presentation view, which is what you're sharing to your students. So that's window one. In a second window or in another device, you can have your teacher dashboard open, which is, oops, I don't want to end it. So the teacher dashboard, you can access it down here at the bottom right-hand corner. There's three dots that you can see. You can open up that dashboard in a new device, which is what I typically do. So if you have like another tablet or another window, you can open up another window and go to app.peardeck.com/dash and open up this teacher dashboard. But because I can't share a second device over my Google Meet, I'm going to open up this window, the teacher view, in a new window so you can see what that looks like. So this teacher view is my ability to see everything that my students are doing as they log in, as well as answer the questions. So this is a view that you would not share with your students. This is your view and your view only. And for the reasons that I'm showing you now, because I can see Danielle's answer, I can see Jessica, Nancy, and Kenny's. So you wouldn't want to obviously reveal your students' responses along with their name, but as the teacher, it's very important for you to be able to see each individual response. So in this teacher dashboard, it allows you to do that. Within the dashboard itself too, you can also do some curating things like starring responses. So if I wanted to just show 2 responses from my teacher dashboard, when you show the response to the class, it will only show those 2 responses, and it will unfortunately leave out Nancy's and Kenny's response. On the flip side, if you wanted to hide a response, there's 3 dots down below where you can hide the response, where that will actually then take it out of your presentation view if you were going to be sharing the responses to your class. So we obviously have that feature there purposely, so that way you can be proactive and you can see responses before you project anything. And if you wanted to project but leave a few responses out, you can simply just hide the responses by clicking those 3 dots. The teacher dashboard also allows you to see your student roster. So up here at the top right-hand corner, you can see everyone who joined in. And then you can also block somebody from a session altogether. So if for whatever Kenny was just becoming an issue with me throughout the lesson, and I wasn't liking his responses, and I didn't want to show those responses to the class, but I wanted to show everybody else's, I could just nip that in the butt and just kind of block you from the session altogether if I wanted to do that.
Geez, I'm back in high school.
I mean, and exactly. So Kenny, you can see why like that might be handy if you have those students in your classes. But hopefully you won't have to run into that very often, because you can let your students know that if you are being inappropriate, I can see who is being inappropriate, and that will prevent your students from doing that, because we obviously want everyone to participate. But if for whatever reason a student wasn't feeling it that day, you can always just take actions into your own hands and block them from the session. So any questions on the views? I know that I talked a lot, and there's only a couple, but if you've never used Pear Deck before, I can see why it's confusing. So any questions on the views for both the student and the teacher before I move on from the slide?
I had a question. If you block them from the presentation, can they still, from the session, can they still see the presentation?
They can still see the presentation, but they won't be able to answer the questions.
They won't be heard.
They won't be heard. So yeah, I know I asked you, every student is heard, but you chose not to hear from them. But I mean, obviously for good reasons. You can, and Nancy, if you wanted to, you can deal with the, having to find whoever's response that you just, if they're being repeat offenders, essentially, you can just find them and hide them and block, and just, what's it called? Lock the screens and then share. So that's really up to you. But it really depends on how you want to manage that. But we give you both options to do so. Awesome. Okay, so the next few slides, I'm going to turn this on in student pace mode. So as you saw when I launched the Pear Deck session, you can do student pace mode from slide 1. But if you started a live session and then you wanted to turn it into a student pace lesson where your students are going through the slides on their own, you can also do that as well. So the same place that you found the teacher dashboard, you can turn on student pace mode. And then in your student view, at the bottom left-hand corner, you're going to see some arrows now. So go through the next 3 or 4 slides on your own in student pace mode and answer those questions for me. And as you do that, I'm also going to show you the teacher dashboard and let you know what that would look like in student pace mode. So the teacher dashboard, there's nothing different about it in the fact that as your students respond to a question, it will populate your teacher dashboard. But what's neat about the teacher dashboard in student pace mode is that since you're not leading the discussion, Pear Deck it'll show you where your students are at. So I can see Nancy is on slide 12, And then I can see Danelle and Kenny are on slide 13. Yeah, and if you're not a math whiz like myself, don't worry about, the graph question. I put that up there because I feel like it's important to be able to like give you an example of how a math teacher would use it. These are actually pulled from our template library, so I'll show you how to access our templates that you can use easily, that are already pre-built slides that you can incorporate. But within the teacher dashboard, as your students are responding to the responses, they'll populate in the teacher dashboard. So from afar, you can still see how everyone's responding. And then I'll give you another 30 seconds to finish up on the slide that you're on. So right now it's in student pace mode. Again, if you wanted to just do this from the get-go, from slide 1, teachers do it all the time, where they create a lesson, send your students the link, verbalize or write out a due date of when they need to have these done by, and then the rest kind of takes care of it. The rest takes care of itself as your students go through the slides. All right, excellent. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off student pace mode and get you back with me. So I'm going to turn that off, and then I got a couple more slides, and then we're going to be on to creating slides. So, and don't worry about these links, because you're going to actually get a copy of all of these slides that are going to be sent to you at the end of the session. But what I want to share with you is the next couple slides. They're website slides, but they are website slides that are sending you, sorry about that. Let me decline this. These are slides that are having embedded website links. So you can actually have a website within a Pear Deck on your student view. So your students can actually go to a specific website that you want to direct your students to. So instead of opening up a new tab and telling your students to go down that rabbit hole and then copy and pasting a link, within Pear Deck, you can actually embed a website right within your slides. Here you're seeing all of our templates. This next slide is a link to our weekly wonders, where you can sign up for free on a weekly basis. We'll actually send you templates that you can use to give you some ideas. This last slide here is Newsela Daily Decks, where you can sign up for free again. And we have a partnership with Newsela where you can sign up on a weekly basis, where we'll send you a Newsela article along with some interactive Pear Deck prompts. So these are like mini Pear Deck modules that have your students reflect before and after a Newsela curated news article. And I know a lot's going on right now today. So it's a good way to invigorate your students, get them to think and to engage in some content and some curriculum that you want to send them based on current events. We have a website, obviously, if you need any questions or if you have any questions. This website link too, and I'll show you how to do it. You can also embed other web applications like Kahoots, Edpuzzle, those types of tools, where teachers love to app smash with Pear Deck and incorporate different tools that they're also incorporating within their classrooms today. Awesome. Well, I'm going to now have you. So this takes us to the last part of our time together. We've got about 25 minutes where for this, I'll have you click that Make Your Lesson Interactive with the Power of Pear Deck. Let me go back to that slide. So go ahead and click that. And it's going to open up Google Slides. So what we're doing right now is we're going to end this session, but I'm going to have you click this hyperlink to now get you into Google Slides so I can walk you through the add-on, how to get it, how to start using the questions from the template, creating your own custom questions, and then how to start your lesson. Looks like stare, I got a typo there. Start your lesson with the add-on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and end this session. So make sure that you end your Pear Decks and title them. So we'll do Jessica. Since Jessica set this up, save and end that. And what that's going to do, it's going to title that session so you can always go back to the session and find it easily. but it's going to also create something called a student takeaway, which is a review of all of the slides along with all of your responses to those slides. All right. So before I get started here, any questions on what you've seen so far? Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to then just jump right into it and walk you through these steps of how to start using Pear Deck. So I guess I'll ask this question. Do the three of you, do you all use Google Slides today already, or PowerPoint, one of the two platforms?
I haven't been using Google Slides. I know how, I just haven't been using it. I normally use PowerPoint in my classroom.
Okay.
But I'm doing a completely new classroom with new subjects, the whole 9 yards this year. So it's going to be, this is going to be a very powerful tool for me to be able to transition through the different subjects.
Awesome. Great. How about you, Nancy and Danelle? Are you all familiar with Google Slides or using it today already?
Yes, I use Google Slides.
Awesome.
I use Google Slides and Pear Deck, and I didn't end my session the right way. I just closed the tab. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. You didn't have to do anything anyways, because the session was over, so there wasn't going to be I know you can like do a thumbs up or thumbs down. That's optional. You can always tell your students to give a thumbs up or thumbs down if you want that feedback from them. But if you end it out, it's okay. All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts and to the fun part of our time. So to get started, you'll have to open up a Google slide presentation. So you can use something that you've already have, or you can just start from scratch, which is what we're doing right now. But I would highly recommend, Kenny, as you're building or transitioning PowerPoints over into Google Slides, using those existing lessons and just overlaying the Pear Deck formative assessment prompts onto the questions or the slides that you've already built. Same goes to both Nancy as well as Danelle. So to get started using Pear Deck, though, you have to get the add-on. If you don't have it, you're going to have to download it. And I promise that this is something that you just do once and one time only. But to get the add-on, go up to where it says add-ons, click that, and then I have it. So if you have it, go ahead and open it up and just sit tight. But I'm going to assume that you don't have it, so I will show you how to get it. So to get it, you go to Get Add-ons. And then you should see our logo. If you do not, just type in Pear Deck. And then click that. And then there'll be an install option. So go ahead and click Install. And then after you click Install, it's going to ask you to verify that with your Google account. So any issues there, if there are any issues there, feel free to speak up. But if there aren't, then I'll assume that you all downloaded it okay. Great. Okay, so now that we've all have it downloaded, so now when you want to use it, you'll just go up to add-ons and then find the Pear Deck for Google Slides add-on and go ahead and open that up. So now, after you click the add-on and you open it up on the right-hand side, you'll now see the add-on. I'm going to close this out. I don't like that. So this is how you use Pear Deck, and this is how you'll access the template library and the custom question types that you can use on slides that you're building. So you can add interactive slides from our template library, and then you can create your own custom questions with these 6 blue dots, and I'm going to show you how to do both. So for the first part, go ahead and click the R template library. Go ahead and open that up. And then you're going to see, after you open that up, our template library. So when you have more time, or when we get off this webinar, I would highly suggest you like clicking through these different templates that you can have access to. But based on the criteria, so lesson builders, we got templates for beginning, during, end of lesson. We have learning development for critical thinking, social emotional learning. And then we've got subject area specific slides as well, where you can have example questions. You have some littles, K through 2 templates, math, science, social studies, and world languages. So because we all probably teach different things, let's click the something that's applicable to all of our classrooms. So go to beginning of a lesson and click that. And then once you click it, it'll then give you the actual templates that you can choose from. So pick any of those. I'm going to go ahead and click the what do you wonder about today's topic, because that's the one I used. So just click any of those templates that you can see under the lesson bell, or I'm sorry, under the bell ringers. And then after you click the actual template, it'll seamlessly integrate it into your slides over here, but then it'll pump it up into the slide editor right here, front and center. So what do you wonder about today's topic is the general question that's associated with that template, but you can change it. What's great about these templates is that you can change the format or the questions or anything about the slide itself. These are just ways for you to get started and to get some ideas and make that transition for you easier, as opposed to trying to just create your own slides from scratch. So what do you wonder about Pear Deck is what I started, or what do you wonder about, if you all are staying remote learning for your kids? I'm sure that we all had our lumps and our bruises from the transition last year, and hopefully with more time this summer, if you stay remote, that we'll have some better processes in place. But we also know that it's a moving and learning target. So you can ask questions like, what do you wonder about remote learning for this year? So these templates, you can click on any of them. You can use any of them. They're all included. There's no charge for these, regardless of which license you have. So the template library is pretty straightforward. You go into them, you click the one you want to use, and then once you click it, it'll put it into your presentation. But let's go back though. So let's go back and create your own custom question and let you know how the 6 blue dots work. So go ahead and click back. And then get all the way to the front page of the sidebar or the add-on. And then what you will see on the bottom of the template library option is ask students a question. So this is where you can overlay, or when you're creating new questions, the interactive prompts onto a slide that you are currently building or a slide that you've already built. So for example, if you wanted to create a new slide, this is where your work would come in. Like, what slide do you want it to be? What are you trying to do? What if I wanted to create a slide that prompted my students to go to Kahoot and to complete a Kahoot that I share with them? So to do that, I would insert a text box just like with any other slide. I would title it probably on this slide, complete the Kahoot. What I'm doing for this slide is I'm creating a website slide that will send my students to Kahoot for them to complete. I am really annoyed with my mouse, apologize. So let's do some images. Let's insert an image. So when you're going to be doing images or text box or editing itself, it's all done through Google Slides. So all of the things that you're doing right now, even with transitions and GIFs and GIFs or whatever how you call them, or animations, think of this no differently than what you are already doing as you build out these slides. So upload from the internet, actually. I'm going to type in Kahoot. And the image that I want to use is that one. That looks good. So now that image is there. And now here comes the part where I need to make it into a Pear Deck slide. So if I wanted to make this into a website slide, And the same goes for a text, multiple choice, number, drawing, or draggable slide. It's up to you on how you want to create the slide to the way that your students are going to interact with that slide. So for this one, I want to send them to a Kahoot. So website slide is what I need because I want to send them to Kahoot. And then here, it'll ask you for the web address, kahoot.it. And then it'll give you a preview of what your students will see on their student view. That looks good. I'm going to update the slide. So now you'll see at the bottom here, it says students browse kahoot.it. So this will notify to both you and your students that this is a website slide. But when your students are logged into the Pear Deck, that slide, that student view, it'll prompt them with the Kahoot website. Let's say you have an existing slide and you like, okay, this is a good slide. I don't have to do much here, but I want to make this interactive. I want to make this into a drawings feature slide. So find the drawing option. And Pear Deck will do his little dance. And then now you can see our footer down here, what says students draw anywhere on the slide, letting you know that this is going to be a Pear Deck slide where your students will interact with it by drawing on the canvas. And then I'm going to change this question up to which step are you most interested in? So that'll be the question to my students. When they're on the slide, I'll have them circle 1, 2, or 3, if not all of them, because I've now made it into a drawing slide. So let me pause right there before I launch the final step. Any questions on what you've seen so far? I know it's a lot of mouse clicking and me kind of going through it pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, feel free to speak up. And questions are welcome. So there are no dumb questions.
Hey, Robert, back with the Kahoot. If you wanted them to go to a particular Kahoot, how do you do that? I mean, do you put in the code for the Kahoot and have them do that? Or is there a link so that you can get it straight to a Kahoot you've already made that you want them to do?
Great question. And I probably should have been more clear on my instructions for the slide. So thanks for picking that out. So Nancy, so how Kahoot works is that you can't like create a Kahoot through Pear Deck. You have to go to Kahoot, create the game or whatever Kahoot you want your students to do. And then from Kahoot, it'll generate a 4-letter code. So you would have to do that beforehand and then have that code ready. So join code or join pin, I don't know how they call it, it'll generate that for you. And here on this slide, you can share like 1, 2, 3, 4 is what the pin would be. And then that way they'll know that when they go to this slide, the Kahoot will pop up. And the pin that they'll need to type in to join is 1, 2, 3, 4, if that makes sense.
That does. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yep. Great question there. All right, Danelle or Kenny, any questions before I hop to step 3?
No.
Not?
Good to go.
Awesome. Okay. So now that we've kind of just done this quickly and we've only made a couple slides, but when it comes to Pear Deck, you can, if you're new to Pear Deck or if you're new to just doing lessons like this altogether, teachers are doing Pear Deck lessons where it doesn't have to be the full gamut of, lesson from start to finish. Teachers are doing what they're doing and what they're comfortable with doing, and they're slowly incorporating Pear Decks into this. So if it's a 20-slide deck of algebra or a 3-slide deck of maybe some like social emotional learning or critical thinking prompts that you want to send your kids to, it can be as simple as that. So don't look at Pear Deck as you have to do this for everything if you're not comfortable with it just yet. Think of it as, how can I maybe mix up the day and add in some formative assessment prompts, even if it's just checking in with their mental status and like asking them how they're feeling and having them record that. So I guess my thinking just got off track there. So okay, so the last step is presenting the lesson. So now that you've got your slides built out, the last thing that you have to do is just present the lesson. So there's a present lesson button. You click that. And then here, I've already showed this to you. So this should be somewhat of a review where you'll have the option to choose student pace or instructor paced. So we did instructor pace where it launched that code where your students joined with that code or with that link that you share with them. Or you can do it student pace, which I'm actually going to click that and let you know what that looks like. So if you wanted to do student paced from the beginning, what that will look like for you to do and the instructions that you need to do is you need to copy the link, email it, or send it to your students, whether it's through the LMS or like a messaging system. Copy the link, as simple as that, and sending it to your students. When they have the link, they'll be able to go through the slides, or you can share it through Google Classroom. So if you have Google Classroom set up, you can share it through Google Classroom. They'll get notified. They can click the link. And then again, what's different about this way is that they'll be able to go through every single slide on their own. So it's probably important for you to verbalize a due date. So make sure that you do that if you do use student pace mode. So again, the last step after you create your slides is you start the lesson, and then you share the code or you share the link to your students, and you're good to go. So that in a crash course is how you get started with Pear Deck from Google Slides. And if you want to do this in PowerPoint, it's very similar. You just have to download the add-in. It's not an add-on, it's an add-in in PowerPoint online.
I have one question.
Sure.
I use Pear Deck a lot, but when it comes to ending the presentation, if you end it the right way, it saves it and it has lots of good stuff, and you can find it later and go back and see everybody's responses. I never could end it right.
Huh, interesting. Well, if for whatever reason it doesn't work for you when you end it, Nancy, you can always go back and find it and end it correctly in your sessions dashboard. How you do that, there's this hamburger menu looking thing. It's just 3 lines. I call it hamburger because it kind of looks like a hamburger. But if you click that, it'll give you an option where it says review sessions. You click that, and then it'll take you to your sessions dashboard. So to your point, it says Jessica webinar. So that's what we did. It's still live for whatever reason, even though I ended it. But here, Nancy, you can end the session. So you can end the session and then it'll close it out. So now you can see that it did close it out. So you can end the session in your sessions dashboard by finding it, going over here. You can reopen it if you want it. And then you can also open up the teacher dashboard within the sessions dashboard if you wanted to go back and review your students' responses as well. So maybe that will help, Nancy, is that if you go to the sessions dashboard, again, you can locate that. You can actually locate it just by logging in through peardeck.com as the teacher. But if you have the add-on open, you can click that menu, review sessions, and it's going to take you to all of your sessions that you've done in the past.
Thank you. I think that will help. Let me go check and see.
Great. Well, all right. Oh, I do want to show you one thing. If there aren't any questions, I'll pause actually. I didn't mean to hop in if somebody had a question. Okay, so one additional feature that we just came out with a couple months ago is you can add audio. So Nancy, I know you've used Pear Deck quite a bit and you've probably been using it for a while, but this is something new that we've done where you can add audio instructions to the Pear Deck. So you can record audio instructions or you can upload a file. So for this, if you wanted to record Students, circle the step that you are most interested in learning about. You can pause that. You can save it. You can do a preview. Students, circle the step that you are most interested in learning about. And then you can add audio to that slide. And what that will do is when your students are on that slide, you can see that audio is now included. And then once they play that from their student view, it'll give that exact recording back to them.
I teach kindergarten, so that is an awesome feature to have.
Awesome. Yep. I'm sure you'll be using it on every single slide then. Well, great. Jessica, did I miss any questions in the chat? I probably should have checked in with you on that.
No, I've been going back and forth. You haven't missed anything. You're good.
Cool. Well, that is so that is what I had in terms of getting you some quick information and giving you a quick overview. And you are free to reach out to me. My email is robert@peardeck.com. But definitely appreciate you all joining. And if there's any questions right now, again, I'm free to stay on and answer those. If not, you are all free to move about